wouldn't call it an issue, I would call it rather an asset. The asset of knowledge economy and grassroots innovations and how it has changed the dynamics of markets and how it is changing the world as of now. That's what we are going to talk about, that's what we are going to discuss here intellectually, so that we as a team can generate many of the ideas for those who work on the ground. May I take the opportunity to welcome on stage one of our speakers, Mr. Ajay Mishra, Deputy Director General, National Skill Development Agency, NSDA. May we also be honored to have Mr. Sonam Wangchuk, Advisor Sector and Founding Member, HIRE. Then may we please have Professor Saad Parvez, Professor NIT Srinagar, on stage. These would be our three main speakers to deliberate upon the topic that we are now going to discuss. And then before I leave the podium, may I also invite Dr. P. James Suhail to kindly come over and moderate the session. Am I audible?
Without this more. Always, as always. No, that was a jest.
Hello, okay. Okay, McDonald's people have feed wrong food people. Well, I won't say that here because you have next session, then we will talk about McDonald's. So, welcome you all for this very important session. This was supposed to be chaired by Professor Amitabh Maddu. So I'm kind of in his field, having a research background, I thought, okay, I might be able to do kind of justice with the subject because he still has not yet landed. He was to come to Srinagar this morning, but he's now taking an afternoon flight. So knowledge economy and grassroots innovation. Those of you who are here yesterday in the inaugural session, this session is critically important for the state like ours, which I have written somewhere in my book. Kashmir is facing a resource curse, or what would be later on called, and some of us are also facing, economists would call Dutch disease. So in that case, what would be the way forward for us if all of us here are facing resource curse? The knowledge economy in terms of, I would say, how it is critically important. Looking at the economy of Brazil or India or China, when we compare them with Korea and many other smaller nations, their economies are much stronger than these big economies, seemingly big economies. And what would that, those lessons could be also for the state like ours, which have a geographical disadvantage, connectivity is a problem in terms of looking at, because earlier, having the geopolitical or geographic advantage was seen as important for the economic development. But now, as we started yesterday discussing the human development or how knowledge economy will play an important role. We have three important people here. One is, innovation sector, Mr. Wangchuk. Needs absolutely no introduction. Everyone knows him. And Mr. Ajay Mishra has, because earlier we wanted him to be in the first session, which was, skill development, opportunities and challenges. But sometimes we have this blessing in disguise, you could say it. Now we have him in this session. And reason being because he was also having a CBSE. So he would bring that experience also, human development. That's very important. And Mr. Saad Parvez is working from last so many years in National Institute of Technology, as a professor in innovation. So without wasting time, I would request Mr. Wangchuk actually give us a detailed talk. I would not say brief talk, give a detailed talk about the innovation, how innovation and knowledge economy will be critical for the state like ours.
Thank you very much, sir, and thank you everyone. Happy to be here. This beautiful morning. Regarding innovation, entrepreneurship and knowledge economy also, I feel conditions in our country are not the most favorable. Perhaps due to our colonial past, we celebrate, people in government risk and being on their own. And on the education side, we celebrate information retention rather than applied knowledge and grow. And beyond, a kind heart also, as we start saying in Ladakh, that it's not 3 R's of education, it should be the 3 H's. Head is fine, but hands are even more important. These two may not lead to a happy world unless the heart is also given equal importance. So therefore, our schools need to do a lot more on applied knowledge, knowledge that can be used to solve problems rather than information for the sake of information. And we have to make up a lot in this field to be at par with most of the nations. But I feel that even more than the need for schools to change, we have a need for society to change. It is in fact our mindset of society, of parents, that comes as a barrier, even if young people understand and want to break free from these conventions and want to do something different. Schemes like these are great, and some young people may even be inspired and ready to change, but then they very soon face the second barrier at home when parents say nothing doing, you will become an IAS or engineer or some manager. That's the reality of our nation, and therefore those need to change. And in society, apart from enterprise, celebrating enterprise, we need to groom our society to also celebrate risk-taking, and as a very important part of that, celebrating failures. Failures as a stepping stone rather than as an end of efforts. And these need to go hand in hand with schemes like this. Otherwise, you may have the best of schemes, but if the society looks down upon people doing things differently or in their own way through enterprise, we won't make much inroads. So a balanced movement of changing the mindset of the society is equally important, I feel. Now, going into the field of knowledge economy through a very sound education system that is not chasing after, but rather, I would say, leading the rest of the world. Again, as I said, our main problems are that we are more about information and examinations and paper, mostly paper knowledge, paper exams, paper degrees, which are not very useful in real life. So I'll share with you here some examples of how in Ladakh we are trying to make young people go for applied knowledge, apply everything that they are supposed to learn the theory of in schools, but rather than getting stuck on those, making them, usable knowledge that can solve problems, and slowly that can solve the problems of the mountain regions of the world. So each place, young people need to specialize not only in solving their own problems, but then being a resource for other similar regions. For example, Ladakh is a trans-Himalayan desert, and this geography is full of many challenges because there's very little in what we study in schools or colleges that could solve the problems of these places. And therefore, gearing up for the future to make our young people problem solvers of this kind of geographical features at least. Or you here in Kashmir, for example, the mid-hills of Himalayas, could have a vision to specialize young people here so that they are not only able to solve problems here, but be available for the world to help them solve their problems. And that is what knowledge economy is. Apart from producing apples and making them efficient, and I was delighted to meet some entrepreneurs, making that knowledge available to others and prospering on that as the other regions prosper also. So I'll just share how in the Trans-Himalayan mountain deserts, we have been struggling against all odds, definitely, as I already mentioned, to make sense of education as a problem-solving tool. If we may have those slides now, we can quickly go. I'm not going to take a lot of time, I'll try. So, our entry into education happened in a very interesting way. As it is, our education system only celebrates information and, success stories, the first position holders and so on. System, we set up a school which would be very different from most schools. To begin with, at this school, the criteria of admission was that the students must have failed in their examinations, especially 10th grade examinations. So it's not your division or position, but your failure. And failure, by the way, is a great qualification. It means that you know the other side of life, means that you are grounded, you're not just arrogant, fixed on success alone. You have seen life in a broader spectrum. And at this, can we go back? Can we go back? I was starting. Yes, so this is a school where things were designed to be different from normal schools, so that those who failed would also grasp and lead. Next, yes. Okay. This was because of the situation at that time in the late 80s and 90s, when in government schools 95% of the students failed every year. So after working to improve that, for those who still failed, we set upon this problem and we thought of turning it into a big opportunity and to make a statement about the system of education and employment in the country, in a way. So here we made students, if they didn't learn the way they were taught, then they should be taught the way they actually learn. Not everybody is like, able to learn from letters and lectures. Most of us actually are more amenable to learning by doing, engaged, hands-on. So as you can see at this school, the students run the system. If we want to give them life skills, then we don't need to teach them from pages of a book. We let the students run the school and they learn to manage a school. For example, here they set up a little government every 2 months and run the school like a little country. And that way they are ready for the real life. So every 2 months they have an election and a government is set up and the government makes plans and executes and reports in the little parliament and thereby learn the skills of life. Or they run the dairy farm which gives all the milk, the organic vegetable farms which gives all the organic food, but at the same time they apply their mathematics, they apply their economics. If they are producing milk, then they would use their statistics to track the productivity of the cows, and they would cash the milk by selling it to the campus kitchen and thereby see what the inputs were and how much the output of wealth was, and thereby learn profit is equal to selling price minus cost price in a very practical, visible, touchable way. Can we not run too fast? I haven't gone to this one. Yes, now I'm now coming to this one. Yeah. So abstract theories that bother us in exams, like germ theory, you could actually apply it to make jam and preserve fruits for a year rather than losing them in a week. Things can become unforgettable if they are taught in a way that touches not just your ears and eyes, but also all the other sense organs. So, jam making can teach you germ theory, for example. Okay, next. Yeah. Now, many of the students develop an interest in these practical ways of learning and take it further as a career option for themselves. So, several of these students became jam makers or fruit pulp suppliers for many industries in the country. So their learning of 10th grade science becomes the beginning of their career as entrepreneurs, as it is their failures. So they don't have much at stake, and failures are great entrepreneurs because you don't have much to lose. It cannot be much worse. इज्जत उनकी होती है, बेइज्जती उनकी होती है जिनकी इज्जत होती है. So those who are failures are blessed with not so many, baggages as an IIM graduate would be. So it's more likely to see, entrepreneurs from a school of failure than from a school where you celebrate only success. And other students who would take care of visitors to the school, for example, this one became a great celebrated entrepreneur who started a travel company, or others who would go back and add value to products from their region, like yak milk into yak cheese of international standards. Yeah, next. Similarly, the school itself is designed and built by the students, with workers also, but to a large part by the students, designed with them. And innovation, the kind that the science you learn in high school, is all applied to solve problems around the themes of earth, sun, ice and fire. So earth as a building material is used to build all the buildings, and the chapter on heat that you study in schools is applied to make the buildings so warm that they don't need any heating even in winters. Convection, conduction, radiation, these are terms we are made to memorize, for exams. But if applied in life, they could create a building that actually keeps people warm at plus 15 in a minus 15 winter in a place like Ladakh. Next. So then, some of these students then become entrepreneurs who build solar buildings for individuals, for hotels and resorts and the military and so on. They become entrepreneurs who can translate that otherwise bookish paper knowledge into usable knowledge that can solve problems of a cold mountain area. So this is one of the startups that from the school where people come as failures, but then they do different things in life. Yeah, next. This is an earth building, which often is associated as something from the past, backward and so on, but it can be adapted to modern tastes, and then with a little science, it can become ultimate comfort that your air conditioners may not give, and if they give, comes with a lot of other problems that are created rather than only solving this one problem. Okay, next. And using materials like earth, not just discarding them as backward like society does, but questioning that and doing it differently slowly gets acknowledged globally. We started this some 20 years ago in the 90s, when people would laugh at us for going back to mud as a building material. But by 2016, the world started catching up, thanks to climate change and other problems, ecological problems, so that we were given this Terra Award in Lyon, France. Yeah, next. So some of these students ever since have been now preparing this to become more scalable industry with prefabricated mud, solar heated mud buildings, which the Indian Army is very interested, because you can imagine in cold mountains how much oil they burn to just keep Jawans warm, and how much pollution they cause, and how much pain and suffering because of fire accidents and so on. So the knowledge of high school science can become something that many young people can live off, not just survive, but live with pride. So, for example, this is going to be used by the military for roughly 10,000 shelters, and where we give them the know-how and prepare so-called failing students as entrepreneurs who will build these buildings. Next. These are many aspects of the prefabricated, meaning the buildings are built actually in a plant throughout the year. Unlike in Ladakh, you have only 5 months of construction, but you do it in a plant 12 months, and then you assemble them on site in the summer 5 months, which takes only 2 to 3 weeks. So we are working on this as a sector which many young people can take up and solve problems in Ladakh and beyond. The whole of Central Asia, Tibet and places are very much in need of solutions like this. The earth is in need of such solutions, because otherwise we'll be burning so much fossil fuels and causing more problems than the ones we solve. Yeah. I'll not go into detail, but at the school the students learn from a campus where almost everything is done with energy from the sun, whether it is cooking or vegetables or lighting of the buildings or electricity, water heating and so on. Even cows in their cow sheds live in solar heated cow sheds. So they learn and then go on in life to apply it, to solve problems in their own village and hopefully later in other parts of the high Himalayas. Yeah. And for these activities, again, the world started catching up, and in 2017, I think we were given the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture. We need to be original. There's so much in high school science and maths that you can solve many big problems. It's just that we don't need to keep looking for what New Delhi has done or New York has done and keep chasing. You do your own thing to solve your own problems, the world will follow. The next. Then comes another application of high school geometry, the fact that shapes like spheres, hemispheres and cones have low surface area for the given volume. We applied this simple theory in high school geometry to solve water problems of high Himalayas. So, making artificial glaciers to store winter water, which is not used because there is no farming, in summer when there is farming but not enough water in spring and summer. So, in winter we freeze pyramids or cones of ice, which thanks to this high school geometry does not melt till June, much against all the rest of the snow on ground which melts by March. Yeah, next. These stay till June or July and melt when there is need for water. Next. Yeah, this is how it is made. If you could look at the right, a pipe brings water only simply by gravity, and because of that pressure, a fountain is made to spray water in the -20 air, which freezes in the shape of a cone, and a cone has low surface area for the volume that it can capture, and therefore the sun doesn't get enough area to melt it, and hence winter ice stays into June and July, making trees possible where there never were. Next. So these were proof of concept when we planted 5,000 trees to be irrigated in springtime only with the artificial glaciers. Now, again, simple science, but more than just memorized information, applied and made unforgettable for the students while at the same time solving problems. Yeah. Thanks. Now we are working on applying this technique to solve even bigger problems. For example, disasters like glacial lake outburst floods, flash floods caused by lakes when glaciers melt fast in times of climate change these days. So this is Kedarnath, where such a disaster struck, as you would remember. Next. We are using the same technique to simulate the situation of a lake in high valleys in Ladakh with our students, so that we make many ice stupas out of the lake water, which is dangerous and is like a ticking time bomb, could rupture any time and cause a flood. Going there to siphon the water out and lower the lake to safer limits, and not just solving the safety issue, but refreezing that water into many ice stupas or artificial glaciers just below the lake, as you can see in the artist's impression, so that we are able to convert this bomb of a problem into a sheet of ice that keeps growing every winter. Even as it melts a little in the summer, more layers are added. In other words, reglaciating the Himalayas, something that has not happened in since Ice Age, last Ice Age, 10,000 years ago. This is a vision. We are working on small tests with our students to apply this, and this we are now called by the government of Sikkim to apply it on one of their lakes next, which is considered very dangerous, the Lonak Lake. So in this way, even so-called failures can use so-called high school knowledge to solve real-life challenges of these scale as climate change. Yeah, next. Next. And finally now, inspired by what failures can do in their teenage, we are working on establishing a university, an alternative mountain university, where not just one place, one person, one off, but all young people get a chance to use knowledge to solve problems as a part of their university. Our universities are much too theoretical. It's all paper-based, highly unusable, and the people who come out highly unemployable. So we have to change that system to make it more usable. And this university, we hope to have 2/3 of the time outside in the field, and only 1/3, benefiting from elder and experts' opinions, books, and papers. And this university is being created using the artificial glacier technology on a desert which has never seen any greenery, to become something like that in the coming 5 years or so. What you saw just now of artificial glaciers was at the top of this place, and by showing one alternative to the university system, we hope that in future ripple effects could go into other universities around the world, so that these become places where young people can apply what they learn to find solutions to their own context. It could be oceans context, it could be deserts context, in our case mountain deserts. I think that's the end. Thank you.